Hey there, this is Mr. Icarus, and welcome to yet another edition of Doom Mod Madness. This time around, we are checking out the Crystal Maze, a mod based on a game show bearing the same name, and if you went around in the UK in the early 90s, it's probably not something that you'll remember all that well, or even be aware of, but coincidentally, I was around in the early 90s, and the Crystal Maze is something I remember quite fondly indeed. So just to give you an idea of how the show used to work, each episode would follow a team of 6 led by an eccentric guide, in this case played wonderfully by Richard O'Brien, an actor you may know as Riff Raff from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, among, well, many other things. And they'd have to travel between 4 themed zones: industrial, futuristic, medieval, and Incan. Within each of these zones would be many challenge rooms, and the challenges fit into 4 categories. You'd have mental, physical, skill, and mystery, but ultimately the aim of each of these rooms was to succeed and acquire a time crystal. Now the whole point of collecting these was that the more a team had, the more time they could spend flailing around like idiots inside the Crystal Dome, which is where the end of the show took place. The aim here to collect as many gold leaflets as possible while avoiding the silver, because those deduct from their total of gold. If they had enough gold, they'd win a prize. If they didn't, they'd have to walk away with a commemorative crystal instead. So now that we've got the history lesson out of the way, how does this mod deal with the concept of the Crystal Maze? Well, to begin with, you're on your own, there is no team, but you can also pick any of the 4 zones to start within. In this case, I've gone for the futuristic zone, and after that it's simply a case of navigating the environment and picking your very first challenge. In this case, I've gone for a physical challenge, and these tend to be the most familiar, the easiest to get into if you've never experienced this before, because for the most part they generally just involve killing a set number of monsters. You can see how many we need to kill in the top left, a total of 20. However, if we die, which also includes suicides if we blow ourselves up with a rocket, that counts as the challenge failed and you're teleported to the prison room. And the only way to escape the prison room here is by spending crystals. And as you can imagine, failing this very first challenge here would be a very bad scenario indeed, considering we don't actually have any crystals to rescue ourselves with. Another factor that you'll need to constantly keep in mind during your challenges is the timer in the top right. If that ticks down to 0, a similar fate awaits us. It's a one-way ticket to prison, and only a crystal will free us. So to begin with, it's a good idea to kind of hedge your bets in terms of what challenges you go for. After physical, I'd say that the next most accessible category for me would be skill. And that's because this particular category tends to focus on movement and precision. In this particular case, housed within the industrial zone, we've got a bit of an obstacle course to run. No enemies to worry about, no projectiles to dodge, but that's not to say that they won't be a factor in other skill-based challenge rooms. In fact, when it comes to your first playthrough of the Crystal Maze, you'll very much be at the mercy of your own luck, because you're not really gonna have any idea what's waiting for you on the other side of most teleporters. All you can really go by is the category that you've got beforehand. It's helpful then that it's not always a case of win or lose. There is also the option to forfeit, and that can typically be done by backtracking to the teleporter and going back through. Sure, it means that you don't succeed in the mission, you don't get a crystal, but on the other hand, it also means that you don't have to spend an extra crystal to free yourself from prison. If anything, I'd say that this is a mod that lends itself extremely well to replays. It's the kind of mod that encourages you to try a little better next time. Maybe you can avoid that crusher that caused you to lose that crystal opportunity. Maybe you can finish that challenge in time before you're locked in. Maybe you'll have the full 16 set of crystals to give yourself the best possible chance in the Crystal Dome at the end. Or maybe you'd just like to dick around a little more in a few of those challenges that just cause you to scratch your head in confusion. Now, of the challenges that I've shown you so far, a lot of them are pretty much one and done ordeals, but where the Crystal Maze gets interesting is how it deals with some of its mental puzzles. It's very aware that once you've solved one of them, it's going to be very easy the next time round if you encounter that challenge again. So some of these, the riddle challenge here in particular, rotate, so you won't always get the same riddle every time you visit that particular room, which I gotta admit is kind of ingenious. I also really enjoy the structure of the riddle challenges here as well, because even if the riddle itself leaves you with a bit of a confused look on your face, you can always look at the letters you've got to play with on the field in front of the tablet here, because the way you solve this is you actually pick the spelled out word and you move across the tiles to spell out the solution to the riddle. In this case, it's time. So if we go down to M and then E, it'll teleport us out and unlock the crystal for that challenge, which is pretty cool. If I had to pick a challenge category that I enjoyed the least, I'd have to say that it's the mystery category, if only for this particular challenge here in the medieval zone. So the whole point of this one is you need to track down a tome, and in order to do that, you need to follow 2 sets of clues to find its location. The first clue leads to the second clue, which is here, and the second clue will hopefully point you in the right direction. Now this took me at least 3 separate playthroughs before I got a set of clues that I could actually follow here. They were a little cryptic, a little hard to follow, and the locations sometimes were a little tricky to actually find, but in this case, the clues led me to the crapper. I thought the tome was initially in the crapper, but no, it was on the shelf behind it, obviously. Unfortunately, however, this is not where the challenge ends, because having found the tome, you now have to return it to its rightful place, something that the mod doesn't specify, so you're gonna spend a while running around humping tables, trying to figure out if that's where it's supposed to go. It didn't occur to me during this playthrough to try the bookshelves. That might have been a good shout, but no. This was my 3rd time through. I was getting a little frustrated with this challenge. I thought I'd made some really good progress actually finding the tome this time round, and then it pulls this last act twist. Basically, I ended up losing a crystal to this one, yet again, because I got so frustrated that I forgot about the timer, and couldn't get out, which made me feel like a bit of an idiot. I bet you the solution's something blindingly obvious as well that I just kept running past. Once you're done with your 4 challenges per zone, your path will lead you to the crystal dome at the heart of the maze. And the aim here, much like in the game show, is to get as many of those golden tokens as possible, while taking great care not to shoot any of the silver ones, because as I explained at the start, any silver that you acquire will take away from your overall total of gold. This time round, I'd actually had a pretty good playthrough, granting me a fair amount of time here in the dome, and quite frankly, it's something that I needed, because you've got to reach a total of at least 50 gold in order to win the grand prize. Once you're done with your session in the dome, it's time for the game to count up the amount of gold and silver that you have managed to acquire. In this case, I managed to get my hands on 74 gold, which is pretty damn good, but on the flip side, I managed to get 3 silver. I'm guessing, just going by my advanced arithmetic here, that this worked out in my favor. 71 is definitely more than 50, netting me the big prize, which, believe it or not, is a selection of prizes. Who would have thunk? I could choose murder mystery, rock climbing, off-roading, a health resort, parachuting, virtual reality. Oh wait, no, these aren't actual real prizes, are they? They're imaginary. They're imaginary video game prizes. I knew that. I knew that. I didn't think a prize would magically appear if I beat this mod. Not at all. That would be colossally dumb. That ain't me. So I think it's safe to say that I've actually quite enjoyed playing the Crystal Maze. I mean, the fact that I've played through it at least 3 times over in search of actually getting enough tokens at the end is testament to how replayable this mod actually is, to the fact that the challenges still remain fun, and the fact that you can return to some of these and improve on them, have a second chance, do something a little better, learn a little more each time. It's a fantastic attribute for a mod to have. The approach to the theming here is simple yet effective. It doesn't really need to do much, if I'm going to be honest. This isn't a mod that seems to be going for flash over substance, because let's face it, there is a lot of substance here for you to chew on and play around with. In fact, I believe there's something like 30 individual challenges across all 4 of the zones here in the Crystal Maze, so really, you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't pick this up a few more times after that initial playthrough. Another thing that I really enjoy about this mod is how it preserves the transitions between zones as well. Everything feels very interlinked, you transition quite nicely from one zone to the next, and I just enjoy the way it all slots together. The fact that you can play these zones in reverse order as well as forward order is just neat. But yeah, there's a tremendous amount of variety and fun to be had here in the Crystal Maze, more than I could ever squeeze down into one edition of Doom Mod Madness, which is why I'm extremely happy to say that you should definitely check this out for yourselves. And if you're interested, the link, as usual, is in the description below. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to let me know what you thought in the comments, and feel free to suggest any mods you'd like to see me cover in future episodes of Doom Mod Madness. This has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.